I grew up in Japan. I built a career there. I lost everything there.
3 times I went back and started again.
My name is Kim Pedersen. This is my story. They came for the car around 2 o'clock on a Saturday, September 3rd, a beautiful sunny day. I had bought it 3 years earlier, in 2002, shortly after I left the embassy and started working with a Japanese company, launching Danish products in Japan. At that time, I believed things were finally coming together, that I had reached a point where I could build something that would last. The car was a blue metallic Toyota Altezza. I am not particularly interested in cars, but as a former taxi driver, I care about certain things: acceleration, response, and how a car behaves under pressure. The Altezza had the right balance. I stood on the pavement and watched the transporter winch it up onto the ramp. Bright September sunshine on the paintwork, on the transporter's metal ramp, on my face. I did not cry. I had already done that. By September 3rd, there was nothing left to spend on crying. What I was left with instead was clarity. I followed the movement of the car all the way up the ramp, not because I needed to understand what was happening, but because I already understood it too well. Watching it being taken away made something very precise visible. That version of my life had already ended, whether I had fully accepted it or not. The car disappearing simply confirmed it in a way that could no longer be ignored. I walked back to the house. It took about 10 minutes. I was not in a hurry. The house felt different when I came back. It was the same house, but something had changed. It felt empty. The car was gone. I no longer had my Japanese family. No wife, no kid, no related Japanese family any longer. My job was gone, all my belongings were still there, but I couldn't bring them with me anyway. The house was never really mine either. I lived there alone. My Japanese wife had lived in Hitachi for the last year. Looking back, I could not stop thinking. I had never been a part of that family to begin with. Decisions about her daughter had always been made without involving me. At one point, she changed her school without even asking me. In a normal relationship, that kind of decision requires agreement. In this case, it did not. The divorce did not change the situation. It confirmed it. I let myself feel the loss, the emptiness, the devastation of the divorce once. I felt self-pity a couple of hours the day she told me she wanted the divorce. After that, I stopped. Not because the grief was gone, because it would not change anything. I sat down at the desk and looked at the screen for a while. Not working, just looking. For the first time in a long time, there was nothing left to think about. For years, there had always been something. Business decisions, structure, next steps, negotiations, planning. Always something unfinished. Now there was nothing. No business to operate, no family to think about, no future to plan. Only the flight to Denmark, already decided, and whatever might come after that. It did not require planning, it simply required waiting. My mind, which had been active for years without interruption, had nothing left to work on. It was empty. I couldn't stop thinking how many people had been in a similar situation and lost everything. It had started raining outside. My mind started circling around the fact that I had just lost everything. I probably had not really registered it yet. This was the first time for me to really losing everything. I wondered if this is something which happens for other people. Some probably have lost everything in a fire, maybe in an accident. Compared to an accident, I did still have my good health, so I might be better off. Yet the longer I sat there, the more I found myself drawn toward a different question. For hours I had been cataloguing what had been taken away from me. The list was long, and the losses were real. There was no need to exaggerate them, and certainly no point pretending they did not hurt. An entire life had just come undone. Years of effort, sacrifice, planning and hope had produced a future that no longer existed. But eventually another thought entered my mind. If I was willing to devote so much energy to counting my losses, perhaps I owed it to myself to examine what remained. There is a particular exhaustion that arrives when life asks you to start over yet again. It is different from physical fatigue. Sleep does not cure it. Rest does not cure it. It comes from repeatedly investing yourself in a future, only to watch the future refuse to honor the investment. That evening, I felt dangerously close to that kind of exhaustion. Not the exhaustion of a man who wants to end everything, but the exhaustion of a man who no longer wishes to fight. A quieter surrender, a gradual lowering of the arms, a willingness to let events take control simply because the alternative demands more energy than you believe you possess. Looking back, I think that was the greatest danger I faced that night. Not losing my home or my job, not even losing Japan. The real danger was losing faith in the idea that another beginning was worth attempting. No clear idea of how I would rebuild, where I would live, what I would do for work, or how I would recover financially. All I possessed was the uncomfortable awareness that the person staring at the television was still capable of making choices. Defeated as I felt, nobody had taken from me the ability to stand up and try again. While my thoughts drifted, I heard the news in the television that a typhoon was on the way.
台風14号は大型で非常に強い勢力を保ったまま、南大東島の北東海上を北上しています。この台風に伴う暖かく湿った空気が関東地方上空に流れ込むため、夜にかけて大気の状態が非常に不安定になる見込みです。局地的に猛烈な雨が降る恐れがあり、厳重な警戒が必要です。
The phone rang. I was not sure if I wanted to answer it. On the display it said, Mr. Mori. He was a good old friend of mine, whom I had known since 1999 or so. Back then he lived next door to me in Omotesando. He worked with a company related to Japanese broadcast production.
Hello, Kim. Long time no see. How are you doing?
Mori-san had asked me before if I wanted to become a celebrity. I had declined because I did not find it appropriate to use my diplomatic status to promote myself. In hindsight, a big mistake, but I couldn't do anything about it now. Or could I?
Kim, why don't you take the first plane tomorrow morning to Tokyo? Let's meet, have a beer, and discuss the possibilities.
I thought about it for a few seconds. There was nothing left for me in Matsuyama anyway. So I decided to buy a ticket and go. The day after, I took the plane to Tokyo, where I met with Mori-san as agreed. I knew he was now a successful company owner, working on fostering celebrities. I think he worked with Fuji TV and broadcast companies, created magazines and other tasks related to the media world and publishing. He had done well. I was informed he now had around 40 people working for him. It should have been easy for me as well, but I did not have even one employee. I was broke and on the way back to Denmark. Mori-san introduced me to one after another of his employees. As it is in Japan, everybody knew who I was, but I had no idea who they were. Mori-san probably had told them about me and informed them a guy, who they might be working with in the near future, would visit the office today. I was introduced as former diplomat, now business owner, and a possible candidate they might want to work with. Most Japanese back then would be impressed hearing I was a former diplomat. Maybe not so much any longer. Time has changed. But the meeting never really came to what I had hoped for, namely the discussion about what we could do in the near future together. I suppose it was too sudden for both of us, and there were no real good ideas on the table either. After my meeting with Mori-san, I needed to find a place to stay for the night. I walked toward the nearby Shibuya Scramble Crossing, where I expected it would be easy to catch a taxi. It was approaching 8 o'clock in the evening, and the weather was beginning to show the first signs of an approaching typhoon. I decided I had better find a hotel as quickly as possible. My best option, I thought, would be to look for a business hotel in the Shinbashi area. Shinbashi is well known as a gathering place for Japanese office workers, who often go there after work to socialize with colleagues or entertain clients. Because of its business-oriented character, I assumed there would be plenty of reasonably priced hotels in the area. By now, it had already started raining. At first, it was little more than a drizzle, but the rain seemed to intensify with every passing minute. Gusts of wind swept through the streets, sending umbrellas twisting and forcing pedestrians to hurry for shelter. It was clear that the approaching typhoon was gathering strength, and I was eager to get indoors before the weather became truly unpleasant. I hailed a taxi and asked the driver to take me to a business hotel in Shinbashi. The taxi driver agreed and took me to the Shinbashi area, recommending a nearby business hotel as a place to spend the night. He pulled up outside the entrance. I paid the fare, thanked him, and stepped out into the darkness. The moment my feet hit the ground, I realized I had made a mistake. What looked like an ordinary puddle was actually a sheet of floodwater. I sank straight into it. Water surged over the tops of my shoes and soaked through my socks almost instantly. Within seconds, my feet were completely drenched.